they may not like the next thing I did. And your ability to not care and just cruise is really what's going to get you there. I don't know why, just that beginning, opening and stuff. I thought they were the worst thing I had ever heard. The first time I heard them, we wouldn't talk about it. It was just, that sounds pretty good. Let's move on.
Hey, y'all. Welcome to Everybody Gets 15 Minutes here at Waterloo Records in Austin, Texas. A quick conversation with some of our favorite acts we have the privilege of hosting live in-store right here on our own stage. I'm Gus Ochoa, and this is Jonas Wilson.
Hi, how's it going?
Welcome back to Waterloo Records.
I love Waterloo. I've been coming here since I was 11 years old.
Oh, man, we're so happy to have you. So for those of you watching, listening, Jonas played here about 6 months ago. He has an amazing album. We're going to talk about it now, but because of scheduling, we couldn't get the interview that day, so I'm going back. And
I'm happy to be back. You know, I have such a good relationship with Waterloo from the label I run and some other things. Yes, and just been here since I was 11.
Oh man, hey, that's like me. That's like me. The first time I ever shopped here I was 12, and it was at the old location.
My sister went to high school, and I'm from Victoria, Texas, but my sister went to high school at St. Stephen's.
Oh, right on.
And so when she went to her freshman year, we would come up on weekends to see her, and I started going to Waterloo. My sister would take me on little excursions. It would be like Waterloo vintage shopping on the drag, you know.
Oh man, dude, you're making me homesick for the 90s, Austin. Jeez, wow. Those of you listening as well, and Jonas, today, recording this on the 44th birthday of Waterloo.
Today?
Yeah, it's April Fool's Day is the birthday.
That's the same age as me. That's amazing.
What?
Yeah,
Are you
I'm
serious?
44.
Oh
yeah.
my
So
gosh.
I'm like, wow, that's interesting, crazy.
So a little bit about you for those of you out there listening who don't know. You've been described as a musical polymath. I've read that somewhere. You're a multi-instrumentalist, you're a producer. You own your own studio. You own your own label, Mr. Pink, which I'm going to mention many times as we speak. You're an educator. You've been a touring musician. You played with Heartless Bastards. You played with the Midnight Stroll. Over the last years, you've been involved with, I don't know, My Jerusalem, Gaudi, Alpha Rev. I'm reading from a list here. Yeah. What made Milwaukee famous? You've been a producer, sound engineer for Sire, Bloodshot, Warner Brothers, Third Man. Tell us a little bit more about how you got started.
Well, I think I got started playing guitars because I broke my leg and I was a skateboarder.
Oh, okay.
The skateboard to art pipeline is pretty strong, actually. Like if you start in skateboard culture or something. But I was in a nowhere town. I broke my leg one time and I picked up a guitar that I had had for a few years and I finally learned to play something. And then about a year and a half later, I was playing blues bars. Now that transition was very strange, but that was I ended up having a couple of friends that played punk rock bands in Victoria. We'd get some random bands from Austin in. I just remember about that time, I was doing really bad in school. My father was trying to figure out what to do with me. But my dad, God bless him, went to the library because this was pre-home internet, really. You know, it was like 94. I mean, we had home internet, but he was looking for some sort of music program because all of a sudden I had taken guitar really seriously that year. And he found this one music camp in New Milford, Connecticut called the National Guitar Summer Workshop, and I was too young to go. But he sent him a video of me playing something, and somehow they accepted me, and so I was like 12, and I was wandering around with these 17-year-olds. And there was a kid that played blues there and was just like, have you ever been to Austin? Do you go to like Antone's? And this kid name was Yanni. He was from Toronto. And he played some Albert Collins song. And I was playing a Joy Division song from the Crow soundtrack on that stage.
Awesome. That's awesome.
So my first stage experience was a Joy Division song. And then I immediately made the jump from I didn't know it was Joy Division. I thought it was Nine Inch Nails. It was the Crow soundtrack.
Sure, yeah.
You know, Dead Souls was on there. But I was so small town culture, movies, things like that were how I got my music. So we had a terrible radio in Victoria and all those things. You know, it was just really classic rock, country, nothing else.
I feel like in some of those situations, the stories that you hear, it's like that helps people kind of seek out things a little bit more.
I was such a hunter for it. Once I got the bug, like just from figuring one thing out on a guitar kind of led me to that. But that led me to about a year later, a friend of mine's mom played in this little local blues cover band. And all of a sudden I knew all these songs. And so I'd come over to, smoke weed with my friend or do whatever.
Sure.
And then his mom would be like, you want to come play this Jimi Hendrix song with us? You know it, right? I'm like, yeah, I know Spanish Castle Magic. Let's do it. And so I was, 11 or 12 and I was and I would tell my dad, I need to go to this bar. My friends, this band's going to let me play. And my dad just doesn't drink, doesn't do anything. Just, what do you mean you want me to take you to a bar?
Right.
But about 6 months later, I was doing these bar gigs in Victoria and I got to open for Ian Moore.
Oh man, growing up here, I've said it before. Like Ian was huge
to me when I was a kid. Like
same.
Like Ian was a big deal, and also he was a big deal later as I became friends with him. Like over the years, as he was just kind of an older musician that I looked up to that would talk to me. But he was always kind and always cool.
Yeah.
But watching that over the course of this high school blues career that I ended up having, which was very strange, like that just happened by accident because I played a bill with Ian and a photographer that was shooting Ian started bringing me in and said, oh, you need to go play in Austin. You need to go play at Antone's and Steamboat and stuff. And so my sister had started going to high school up here, and my dad just started taking me to Antone's, and I would just hound Clifford. When I found out he was Clifford, and Clifford would get, Clifford was awesome. He was super cool. Kid, go home, play basketball. You don't need to do this stuff.
That's so amazing that you have that memory of him.
He would, I remember specifically because I would just, the night would go on. We were at this We Three Kings tribute, I remember. And the night was going on, it was like Keller Brothers and all these guys. And, I was 12, and Clifford, right before he went away, he's like started pulling me up at these tributes and would just be like, hey, we're going to get, like come over, go, a couple whiskeys in and just,
sure.
I'm going to play bass. Why don't you get up and play? You'll find the bar's emptying out. You can come play, kid, And so I'd get to play with like Keller Brothers, kind of all these people of the 90s that were pretty established on those Monday night blues things. And Clifford would drag me back and be like, this is James Cotton. You're just like,
wow.
Like the depth of that stuff. At that age, I was too young to fully appreciate it, As I've aged, I look back on that and just marvel, like, sitting backstage and you're like, this is Pine Top Perkins and James Cotton, and I'm just 13 sandwiched between.
That's incredible, though. I feel like that lack of awareness that you have when you're younger and you're just sort of doing things, that's kind of cool, though, because maybe you're more genuine in the moment and you're like dealing with people on the people level and you're like, I don't know who you are, but like, I like playing guitar and you like playing guitar, and that's really awesome.
Yeah, I mean, it was, I was somewhat aware of who they were because I was I was going through my like Alligator catalog and I was going through blues history.
Right.
As, an open-minded kid, and which really did wonders for me in 1995 in high school, like with my friends.
Yeah.
We listening to Limp Bizkit. I'm listening to Son House, man. It's crushing.
Yeah.
It's like, you like Tom
They're like,
Waits?
who?
Yeah. It just wasn't, kind of alienated me from that. But I also ended up becoming, that one photographer got me into like Vintage Guitar Magazine, and then there was kind of all these guitar interest around me as a teenager, and got to play a bunch of cool festivals and go and open for like Kenny Wayne Shepherd and do all these kind of weird things, that I kind of got to do before I was, 17. And then I hit 17 and I decided I had no interest in blues anymore. The only person that I can think of that was really cool about that was like Ian Moore, because he had a similar experience, and he still says that to me when we bump into each other. It's always where we come from, man. That pressure of this. There was a blues scene pressure thing around that time.
That's incredible that y'all had that same sort of experience.
Well, like I said, I think watching him go through that as I was already kind of, and which also was really important. I think if anybody tries to understand my place in as a music career, I don't know if I even call it that, like just bouncing from one thing to another, making myself available in adjacent fields in music is really what I've done just to survive. But you end up thriving in various fields if you keep at them long enough, and I've done them all long enough. But Ian was a huge proponent of, I think that got the Greengrass record he did. My friend Mark Addison produced that, and I ended up playing in some bands with Mark around that same time because I was about 18. Mm-hmm. And I was playing in Gowdy.
Oh, yeah.
And and I was so young, and all those guys are so much older than me, and I was on the road
remember
with them.
seeing Johnny playing with Mr. Rocket Baby, I think it was back in the day when I went to college in San Marcos.
Oh, wow.
I love Johnny. I think he's so good.
Johnny's amazing. Johnny was at the time also. Gowdy was this band that I was aware of as somebody who was more in the like Ian Moore, Chris Duarte world that I saw, and there was this like Bowie thing. There was this glam component that I was like instantly, there was that and a Britpop thing. It was the end of the 90s.
To me, there was a little bit of a Radiohead thing almost.
That's what I was going to say. It was, and they were the only band doing that in my world.
Yeah.
That was doing the effects thing. And then, I moved up here after high school and after touring and kind of got off the blues trip and started just joining bands, and emos became like, because I was 18. So, so every night of the week, the only place I would go would be emos. And I saw incredible shit.
Ramesh from Voxtrot and I were talking about that.
I love Ramesh. Yeah.
Man, yeah, Amos was the spot. It was
wild.
It was like, everything. It was so great.
Being 18 or 19, and I had already been through this like Antone's thing and through this whole other world of Austin. At that age, it all felt like grumpy old people to me.
Yeah.
At that point, I was like, no, I want like punk rock vitality at 18, 19, you know, and was like, no, I want feedback and synths and give me all the stuff that all these blues people were telling me I shouldn't do. All of a sudden, the blues thing became a confining place of rules that a bunch of 60-year-old men were telling me, you shouldn't use those kinds of effects. That's not pure.
But a great foundation, though, it feels like, right?
Remarkable.
Yeah.
And I'm so grateful I got into it because I still think like you always have that in you at the heart of you where you're like, Reverend Gary Davis can do it with just a guitar and a lyric.
Right.
And like that principle foundation was huge. And I think that's the difference between, you know, someone like myself and someone that just only gets into playing with pedals. I'm like, they're a different thing. I don't need them. I like them.
Right.
Like,
man, you have my mind like going in all these different directions now. It's like we were talking about Gowdy and it reminded me, I mentioned Alpha Rev earlier. And
I played an Alpha Rev, yeah.
I thought that made me think of Indochine.
Oh, I played an Indochine too.
Did you really?
I played an Indochine because Johnny Gowdy gave me the gig. Boy, do I have some stories that cannot go in this podcast from that tour.
Well, I mean, I bet. There were just bands like that were.
Well, you know, Nathan from Indochine is on Mr. Pink.
Oh, really?
Nathan put out several things over the past few years on Mr. Pink, and I'm still very good buddies with Nathan. And I played with Casey, you know, during Alpha Rev through several periods, but I always kind of walked on that. It was never for me. And I have a strong history of like, I play in groups with my friends, and then I'm like, this is getting too busy.
I mean,
I do that.
I mean, you know, that's the life of a polymath, I suppose.
I was like, I got this other thing I'm working on that's really exciting, but it's funny. Alpha Rev, I love Casey, and that was a fun time. And Indochine was more fun because I was so young. Yeah, and I was just turning 21, and I was youngest guy in the van for sure, and that was after Johnny, and Johnny got me into that gig. Got a call from Johnny Gowdy going, hey man, so I'm playing with this band Indochine, and you know, I've got to exit. They're going on this tour and I can't do it. And I'm 21. I'm like, going on the road. Yeah. Sign me up. And so I had one rehearsal and met those guys for 2 hours and jumped in a van for like a month and a half.
Jonas, that's awesome. That's incredible.
That was my Indochine experience.
That's awesome.
That, and then a million miles later, you know, I was a different human being when I got home from that Indochine run.
Well, I mean, a million miles later, here we are talking about Mr. Pink and your history, and I want to get into Smash the Control Machine. This is why we're here. This is one of the reasons we're here.
Wow.
This is your latest.
Yeah.
Right? For sure.
That's my latest. And, you know, and it's funny. I have a strange relationship to my solo music career at this point where it comes in little bursts when it can, as far as things that I'm actually willing to get out and try and promote and do stuff. Because I just, in this age, I don't have the energy to be like a insane touring artist unless I'm making money as a guitarist or something, which is fine.
You have to have that balance.
I have to have that balance. I'm married. I have my studio, and I know that business has sustained me much more than like, I don't need it to be that much. So Smash the Control Machine is coming at a very different kind of time in my life, I think, than some of the other records I've made. Yeah. You know, which I like. I loved this record. It was one of the most fun and one of the most free I've been artistically. Yeah. Like, I think I've hit a new stride where I'm completely unafraid to be completely myself when it comes to music in the last few years. I mean, and I get that from this record. I get that it's a feeling of an artist who's just creating the art that they want to create. Totally. And just trying to work with people I like. And I feel like that's an important place at this time for art to occupy. Like, I think artists are being sold a much different kind of, which that record title and those kinds of things have a lot to do with to me, and a lot of the imagery and stuff that was going, because it was also a visual art explosion for me. You know, I had kind of a much broader view of what I wanted to put into a record and what kind of show I wanted to be and how you wanted it to look, the images, everything. Sort of yeah. And it was, you know, all the album artwork was like giant 5 foot, 6 foot paintings. I saw that, yeah. And, you know, and like everything was just this whole other side of my brain that I allowed to all merge. And I think that's kind of the difference. They were always compartmentalized. A lot of that stuff, like my love of visual art and everything was put aside, just following traditional kind of career path models for musicians. And I think I view this album as my abandonment of traditional career paths. So
I like that. I like that. Well, for me, listening to it, it's a blend of a number of things. It's like hip hop, it's like punk, it's like jazz, it's like electronic, experimental. KUTX called it electrifying and experimental. One of my favorite tracks on the record is Dream of Life.
Oh, and that's one of my favorites too.
The Hannibal Lacumbe.
Yeah, Hannibal's incredible.
So the Chronicle said it hypnotizes a serious Lindsey Buckingham vibe shot through the local trumpet greats siren solo. And that's Raul Hernandez talking, who I love. He's a legend.
My last record was actually title was from a quote of Raul.
Which Raul is a whole, I love you, Raul.
Raul's incredible, and he's always been very giving.
Well, this song to me, it's got like almost like a 50s like LA noir kind of angle to the trumpet, almost like against a backdrop of like, I don't know, like harder edge, a feel of like West End Girls from Pet Shop Boys or something.
That's
like,
totally, you know what,
I'm
glad you say West End Girls. Like that's totally where my head is in, there's a certain era of British influence. You know, I mean, I interviewed like Alan McGee on my podcast.
Did you really?
I'm a Creation Records dork, and my like, you know,
the man behind Oasis, basically.
Yeah, and people like Alan, and like, you know, getting to know people like Paul Oakenfold and kind of all these people in my world of that. But post blues, I was just absorbing so much records due to coming into record stores. People would hand me, you know, here's Blue Lines, Massive Attack, here's this, and just and that stuff started seeping so heavily, and some of it was retro. Some of it I was already viewing retroactively. Like My Buddy Valentine was given to me by a producer when I was 16, and that stuff, you know, by Dave McNair. I'll say that Dave was a great local Austin legend, and you know, Dave is an incredible mastering engineer. He's done things for Bowie, everybody, but Dave taught me sound engineering. But Dave, in a stack of CDs, gave me so much music and influence from that stuff. But that kind of led me to shoegaze, to trip hop, and I had girlfriends that were introducing me to like, this is Portishead. This, you know, it was the end of the 90s. It was,
oh man, Portishead.
But it was magically creative time. Yeah, and I think we're headed that way again right now. Yeah, culturally, like I think there's no monoculture for it to all break through in the same way. But I'm so excited when I see just people blending so many weird things now. You know, I actually think it's probably one of the most creative times in music ever. It's just the least unified they've ever been in finding a way to promote music and publish it and to get it to audiences. Yeah. It's the least we've ever been unified in that way, you know? And if you had a Jimmy Iovine that could say, Dr. Dre is good, Nine Inch Nails is good, Interscope's putting out, you know, you had curators, Alan. Yeah. You know? And I think those people curated my life's taste. So like, all those influences you said are 100% correct. Yeah. Really, my wife and I went to Pet Shop Boys here, and I was like, this is the greatest stuff ever. God, you know, like, I love dance music, and I love that stuff. I work on a lot of electronic and dance music. I have a vast history in it. Yeah. And there's a track I loved on the record is Bailan. Am I saying that right? Yeah. Mm-hmm. Is it Let It Rot? It's a Chinese slang term. It says give up. All the album cover imagery is from that song. And actually, there's a whole painting series that I'm putting out over the summer, kind of doing a bunch of art shows that are called Bailan, because these college girls floating around, that's all pictures of this odd Chinese youth movement. At the time, I think it's, you know, if we use art to process things, that record is a bit Orwellian in one way. But I was also rereading Orwell and taking an interest in geopolitical climate in a way I hadn't. Yeah. And I was also just interested in history in a new way too, because I was just so I was in Argentina, and I was learning about the dirty war, and then I was watching how they would round up college kids and do all these things. And, you know, and like, you just can't help but see similarities in the way these things always start and in the polarization that media always takes. So there was an anti-propaganda stance in the visual art aspect of what I was doing, and I was really influenced by that. But Bailan was specifically because I started taking interest in Chinese geopolitics, and I looked at this thing from 2020 that was happening, and college kids that couldn't afford rent. And I was just taking this, oh, wow, the youth's frustrated everywhere. Yeah. Nobody knows where the world's headed and what future they have. And I think it was just kind of more of a blanket human statement on that stuff. But Bailan was a strange, zen, interesting concept that all these kids came up with that had somewhat slacker punk rock apathy thing attached. So I just thought it would make a good punk rock song. Yeah, I love the line, don't need the lies, don't need the status. I think that's fantastic. Just from the start, the way the drums drive, the huge guitars, obviously, but like it's there from the surface on down to the roots. Like that's the vibe of the tune. Totally. That definitely got that across. And I was ripping off a song by The Smile too. Oh, nice. There was this that you can't You'll Never Work in Television Again.
Oh yeah, that's a great song.
I was so obsessed with that. So my friends were just like, it's just real. I'm like, no, this is so interesting. This Matt Skinner guy's incredible drummer, and nobody seemed to care about that band but me. But I was super excited about that track specifically, and I was really jealous. Like, man, you wrote a song in 5/4 that feels good. I have to do that. So that was by Lon.
Our mutual friend Cory Reinisch, who's you know, also in a great band, Harvest Thieves here, and our marketing manager. He turned me on to that song. I remember when it first came out, and he was like jamming it out in the office, and I was like, "What is this?" And he was like, "It's The Smile." This is fantastic.
They're incredible. Yeah,
I love to hear that. That was an influence on that. Another one is Steal a Piece. I really like that one. The video, again, for those listening, watching, you go check this out. It's like a split screen, kind of subliminal messages. You say that it puts people dealing with chaos and propaganda that overwhelms us in perspective. It's sort of a central theme of the album. Like, how do we keep being human in the middle of humanity's worst sides bubbling around us and ignore the noise of the world for a little while? And it remembers the beautiful side of our existence as the world's got us running. That's kind of.
I mean, you know, what's funny is that song is actually an older song of mine. That song came out on an EP that I had years ago. I had this little cassette 4-track version. And I would do it at 2015, like at Blackheart shows and stuff. It was just like done on a Casio and like,
oh wow,
Casio and a 57 through a distortion pedal in my bedroom.
I love a 57.
You know, but I did that song and I never really put any effort into it.
Yeah.
I had a body of work for the record that it was all new. And then I think as a lot of artists do, when you're like, I got to finish the record and you don't know if you've got the gas for anything new, but you just all of a sudden a new idea for an old piece comes out.
Yeah, I keep everything.
And I think working with people like Alejandro Escovedo, like Al's very good at that. And like playing guitar for Al for a while, it's like you kind of see like, wow, Al's great at reinventing his catalog.
Yeah.
And also as you age, like Alex Chilton was good about this too. A lot of my heroes that kind of
from Big Star.
Yeah. Oh yeah. I mean, you know, Big Star.
Love that.
Yeah. Like I'm Alex, big hero of mine. Like that set a tone for me. I mean, you know,
way ahead of their time.
Way ahead of the time. And Alex's response, I think when I started reading Alex's life story about kind of Box Tops Forward, Alex is probably one of my greatest influences.
Wow.
You know, like everywhere I'd turn in music history.
Yeah.
If I became a replacements obsessive, and then it was like
same.
And Alex was there, and then all of a sudden, all the Big Star references made sense. And then it was, you know, and I'm a Jim Dickinson nut as an engineer, and Jim's right there, and every single component of my Cramps. I mean, like my old band Lomita was covering Cramp songs, and you know, I was just constantly into that stuff. And it's funny, Alex. I think the later half of Alex's career is probably the most inspiring to me, which is the least inspiring to most people. He got out of an industry that he hated and just kind of found his way to be a musician.
Yeah.
And I think that having roots as a young entertainer and that changes your perspective on the way you stare at the entertainment industry as an industry. And you develop a different relationship to it because you've kind of been up and down in 100 bands. Everybody says, oh, this is going to be huge. And oh, you get some money, you go on the road, you do whatever. And some things break, some things don't. Some things break for a little while and then they come back down. And when you've done it for 30 years, you start kind of seeing it different. By the time I was 35, Alex was such a true North Star of like, oh, you just go produce. You go make things you find interesting and you do it your way.
I mean, I love Alex Chilton. I love Big Star. You mentioned, you know, like on the way, you know, up or whatever in these bands, you know, people are saying, oh, this is going to be the next big thing or whatever. At some point, do you stop hearing that and start doing your own thing? Or how does that?
I think the difference is hopefully, and this is as a producer who's been producing a long time, you know, it's funny and like go to a Jim Dickinson quote.
Sure.
Producer's supposed to be that big on the back of a record cover. That doesn't mean they don't have a big role to play. You have a huge role in helping an artist articulate something. As I've aged, the biggest thing that I want when a young band comes to me, when I see bands that are starry-eyed, I'm like, it's good to be starry-eyed. It's good to have that adrenaline rush of this because nothing's more exciting than that ascension. But what you got to realize is that's a career ascension. And that's not necessarily your musical ascension. That's not that. Those might come at separate times in your life. And when you've been doing it a long time, you start to realize, oh, you know, the longevity is what is actually important. Your ability to go with the punches when something doesn't work is what's going to make you have a sustainable life in music and not caving into that noise, you know?
The drive is always good, but maybe the noise, not so much.
The noise is not good. Like, you know, are you seeking attention or are you paying attention? And if you're paying attention to culture and you're participating either in your own conversation that you think needs to be had in culture or, you know, in whatever media you're working in, you know, if you're a musician, if you're a painter, if you're whatever, if you're like, I don't see this, I want to make this, that's great. because you're at least still participating. You're not seeing that there. And if you're like, oh, I love what they're doing, I want to participate in that world of music, that's great too. Like you're just participating in a community of people in a historic thing that we've done musically. It has nothing to do with an industry. Music came way before money.
Sounds like a good place to be.
But I always hope artists get that when you kind of come in and you're
Right.
working with that, because I think that's the hardest part is like, yeah, everybody loves the ride up, you know, but when you have a few hills that you've gone over, you start to see that, oh, you know, there's not really an end destination. It's just kind of like, oh, the road's real nice right now. People like this one thing I did. They'll like another thing I did. They may not like the next thing I did. And your ability to not care and just cruise is really what's going to get you there.
It comes back around to who you are and what do I want to do.
100%. That record's the most I wanted to do something in a while. I just playing with vocal processing, doing things that I hadn't done in ages.
It sounds incredible. And when you played the store, it sounded incredible too. But you're, in my mind, well known for sounding incredible.
But, you know, which is funny to me because I don't think that I see myself in any way like that as I would be. Like, I think I'm just one of those people, like my musical skill set got me a lot of work in music and it's kept me afloat. Like I'm good enough guitar player where I can go play guitar for other people and I can be on a bus if I want to be and be out on the road if I want to be. But as I'm aging, I don't find that life as appealing, you know? So I'm enjoying staying home and producing more. I'm enjoying making solo records and I got a lot more coming on that front.
That's fantastic. Well, staying on this one a little bit, but you were nominated for Best Experimental Artist this last year in the AMAs.
Talk about,
did you know that? Yeah, you know that, obviously.
Yeah.
The Austin Chronicle.
I was just like, Graham Reynolds and Thor, come on, vote for Graham or Thor.
I saw some of your posts about that, and I thought that was really sweet. I mean, Mr. Pink Records, Mr. Pink Recording, your tones are like out of this world incredible. They're so warm and bright between your pedal board and the reel-to-reel onstage machine that I love, that I think is fantastic. I think Aaron Behrens, we were talking about before we sat down, had described that as like cheaper than the drummer, right? like
you know, that whole thing started because of Aaron. Like we did the Midnight Stroll as a 5-piece, and we did 2 tours. And Aaron was just looking at me and going like, man, you know, I like that we would demo stuff in the studio. And he was just like, it seems done. I don't think we need like, it's like, I don't want to like pay everybody to retract this. I don't want to do this. And he's like, I don't know if I can sustain a 5-piece band on the road. This isn't Ghostland. Yeah. And once that kind of became apparent, it was like, is there a way we could do this with just me and you? Yeah. And I was insistent, I will not be on stage with a MacBook. That will not happen for me. I was just me being whatever, my own artistic area.
So fully analog was the way to go.
Well, no, I went and bought an old 4-track because I grew up recording on tape. I mean, I've been working in studio since the 90s. So, and all the people in Austin were very anti-Pro Tools in the mid-90s. DAWs did not come into play. You were laughed out of a room if you were in a room with Steve Berlin and Dave McNair, and they were just like, get that Bro Tools out of here. You know, it was just, my whole job was cutting tape for Dave and doing things like that. It sounds like
the photography transition that happened too. I used to run a studio for a late friend of mine, and it was like very much film, not digital. You know?
And I came from that world. So, I mean, I didn't get a DAW till way late. Like even like Lomita and those bands tracking, like my studio that I ran commercially for the early part of the 2000s, I was still just on 2-inch. And then people finally you have to get a computer, man. And I was like, okay, I'll learn this stuff.
But no MacBook on stage. So you were like, no, I'm not doing that.
I did a no MacBook thing, and I didn't have any idea what to do. And I saw this cheap 4-track for sale that this guy met me at the public library here, and I rebought a 4-track reel-to-reel. And I came back to the studio and just went, I'm just going to print the drums on here, and I'm just going to play to that real quick.
Awesome.
And then I just did that, and then I went, that's pretty cool. I was like, Depeche Mode can do it. 9 Inch Nails can 100%. Do it. Why can't we do it?
Yeah.
And Aaron was like, is this going to last? I was like, I don't know. It could melt on stage. I don't know what's going to happen, you know?
Yeah.
And so I started going and playing solo shows because I was working on a bunch of solo materials around 2015, and I just started this residency at old Blackheart on Rainy Street.
There you go. Yeah.
I was doing tape machine shows with that, just me and a tape machine and just some tracks. And it was very basic. And I was like, will people accept this? And people were pretty fascinated, actually. And so I found a quick intro, like, what are you doing? And I'm just like, I can engineer this stuff. So I just put it all on here. And then with Aaron and the Stroll, it evolved to a much more, well, what if we got 2 machines involved? One was like, well, then we have a backup going. Yeah. And then also I could put some other colors in there. And I started thinking about Zyreka. And I was so obsessed with that record, which got to tour at the Lips the year, which was awesome. And I probed Steven about Zyreka for hours. But I was so obsessed with this concept of wild sync playback. And so tapes came into play, and then it's just evolved and evolved and evolved now. If you come to our show now it's stupid when people ask me to explain what's happening with the tapes and all the things I've experimented with it over the years now, because I've had a decade of it.
Yeah. Well, if you're listening out there and you haven't seen the Midnight Stroll, next time they come through, you should definitely do that. It's fantastic to see. But the way you used it here, because you had Davey playing drums, right?
Started bringing a real drummer in
Monster
now.
drummer. Love Davey.
Davey was in a band with me called the White Lights, and Davey was in a band with me called Lomita as well.
Yeah.
We had many drummers in Lomita, but the White Lights, Davey and me were really the core of what I wanted that band to be.
Yeah.
It was just a drummer-guitar relationship. We were roommates, and like everything I'd play, he'd play too, and we wouldn't talk about it. It was just, that sounds pretty good. Let's move on. You know? So
Yeah, exactly. Man, I just love it. Your whole ethos to like approaching like the sound and where you came from and how that informs the sound. It all feels very community driven. I know this too, because I know people that record with you as well. It seems like your love of the music is just what drives you.
100%. You know, I think like a relationship I have even with the label
versus like getting somewhere or something, you know?
No, I have no interest in there. I realize now that's what I mean. That there's nowhere to get. If you're confusing yourself, you can get to having some better income. How much of yourself do you need to sacrifice along the way for better income when there's plenty of ways to make income if you're open-minded? How you approach your music doesn't have to be driven by monetary return. Once I learned that, because I had many things that didn't work out, just like any other artist, you know, like I've had a lot of potential big things, and then I've gotten to do big things, but I've also realize that that's just, like I said, it's one hill after another. And so once you stop approaching a music career like that and you get down to, why do I do this? And I think in my mid-30s, I realized, because I had some friends putting out records, that they were just, I don't even put it out. And I'm like, my friend Alex Ramirez is what started Mr. Pink Records.
Okay.
My friend Alex Ramirez, I don't know if anybody knows him. He's great. More electronic artist these days, but I knew him as this crazy bass player in a band called A Tiger Named Lovesick.
I remember that band.
So Tiger Named Lovesick was this shoegazy band I used to love. You see him with like Trail Dead, all these bands. And I used to, and I would hound them to record at my place. And then they end up breaking up at my studio. It's heartbreaking. But I've known Alex for a long time. And Alex in about 2017, 2016, he came and made this record with me because he's just like, I don't know, it's just by myself. And what do I do? And so we got in with his beats and made this record. And I decorated a little with them, produced, and just helped, you know. We made this record and I was like, what are you going to do with it? He's like, nothing. I don't know. And I was just, felt a little disheartened because he's like, out of the scene, just I don't know. I'm not in a band. I'm not 20. I don't know what to do. Yeah. And I just went, well, you got to put it out. And I had just been obsessing over my love of, you know, K Records at the time. Mm-hmm. And I was like revisiting my love of all these labels that had started, like Alan, all these people. I've always paid attention to curators. And I think curation's important, you know, especially by people who are educated on the subject. There are curators and you have to look to those people. Whatever they're interested in, there's probably a reason, you know?
Right.
And
yeah, because they've spent the time curating it.
And that's what I mean. And I felt like with Alex, I just went like, well, you know, let me just put out a tape for you. My wife had an extra cassette deck that her work wasn't using. I was like, great, let me get that Sony. I just sat there and made 20 tapes for Alex. And that was Mr. Pink Records. And then a friend of mine asked me, hey, would you put out our tape too?
Oh, that's awesome.
And then I was like, sure. And, you know, and I just started showing up to shows with little boxes of cassettes for people.
I love that. Great. The community needs people like you.
But that's what I mean. It was community driven.
Yeah.
And like I said, when you start thinking about this stuff, as you age and as you sit in it and you realize why you want to stay in it, I think it's just like what Waterloo is doing right now. You're interviewing a community member that has invested 30 years of art into this community in various forms and fashions. And I think that's what's important. You just realize like, no, man, this is a human action we've done for ever. And the people that make it have a bond that's very hard to break, you know? And so I think it's very important that you help people find ways to record, you know, especially because it's a different time. Yeah, people can go to GarageBand and record, but you can't record your band in GarageBand very easily.
Right.
You can sit in a room by yourself in a laptop, but the social experience of making music together and documenting performance. So the documentarian aspect of recording versus the painting and more like at-home self-decoration, which my record's a blend of all of that.
Right.
And I love records that do that.
It's a true like artifact of self-expression for sure.
Those are things that I think community is, you know, you have to bring that. And like Steve Albini was always a huge influence on me. I wanted to go work for Steve. When I started engineering and deciding that maybe I was a more behind the glass individual after the blues experience in my youth and stuff, Steve was huge. And I wanted to go to Chicago. I went and I was going to move to Chicago. I was like going to go work at Electrical. I was certain of it. I was like, that's what I'm going to do. I'm going to work for Steve Albini. Because I just loved his approach to like, let's not inflate what this job is. Just Just go be a documenter of your community, your circumstances, the people that do this around you. You don't know what's important. What's making money is not necessarily what's important, but the people that do this, you don't know if you help document it and you help document it well. These can be timeless artifacts that document what is going on around you. And that's all it has to be. Label in a studio, I went from that ethos, and I've definitely tried to find ways to help educate the artist on making their own money. You try to find ways to let a label make money, which I guarantee you we've lost a lot more than we've made.
Sure.
You know, but it's one of those funny things to me. Like, I don't really care because I've got 30 or 40 releases we've done on that label, and they're all from musicians and people, some out of this community. We did like a Daru, Mono Neon, and Freddie Fox. I was like, holy shit, I got like,
that's awesome.
You know, got these like heavy hitters that are trusting me to put out, even if it's just for a small run of tapes. It's still amazing some of the people that have let me do things for them on that label, and some people that contact me out of the blue. It lets you realize the true nature of the smoke and mirrors of this industry. Yeah. Some of the people that reach out that I'm like, you think I'm doing well just because I'm like, the difference is I'm just doing it. You know, it's not doing well or doing bad. It's just like, no, I'm doing it. And I'm documenting things. I'm putting them out. I'm helping bands figure out ways to fund it if they can't. If I can't help them fund it, I can donate time and help them record it, you know, do other things. So that's really that crazy side of the label for me.
Well, I mean, don't look now, but like, I think Steve Albini would be extremely proud of what you're doing.
Well, that's what I mean.
Here in your own community.
I think those people, Calvin Johnston, like a lot of that's where like people are like, I don't understand your like blues and punk and jazz love. The Rudy Van Geldners of the world that would cut a hole in their parents' basement, you know, and record legendary jazz records in their parents'. That's the heart of what actually makes the music industry work. There's a civil servant side of it that you have to be. You know, you need doctors, you need lawyers and policemen to hold society up. You need recording engineers to document what the people around you did with their time and their art and their craft, and that's how we've documented history forever. You know?
You're one of the people in this community that I admire most for doing that. I'm glad that we get a chance here to sit down with folks and
who make so music much for having me. Like I said,
who sit down with folks and make music in this community and the chance to give them a little bit of a platform to talk about it.
You know, I'm just a big fan of them all.
This is kind of special for me sitting here with you. What are you listening to right now? Maybe a few things that you're excited about, or even bands that are, you're hearing that maybe you want to give a shout out to. Records you're listening to that you like. I mean, what are a few things you're listening to these days?
On my way here, that new Kim Gordon, Play Me.
Yeah.
That Busy Bee song, that's insane. I love Justin Raisin. He's an incredible producer. I mean, the subs and the weird stuff on that record are incredible. And obviously, lifelong Sonic Youth fan. So Kim doing her best work. I feel like she's by far doing the most unique work of any post-Sonic Youth member.
Fantastic.
You know, so I'm a huge fan of her and Justin Raisin from the collective to Play Me right now. People were ripping on that. But as far as other stuff, Don Cherry, Brown Rice, been like in constant rotation. I don't know why. Just check it down. That beginning, opening and stuff. But other new stuff coming out. There's a lot of great post-punk right now, which is super exciting for an old Sonic Youth weirdo fan like me. Yeah. You know, and fan of genre bending. But Yahweh Nailgun. Have you heard that band?
I haven't.
My drummer, Davey, turned me on to them. Crazy. I thought they were the worst thing I had ever heard the first time I heard them. And then I saw their KEXP performance, and I was just like, oh, I'm missing something. Yeah. The phrasing here is incredible. So they're a band that I've been listening to a bunch of.
I find that's the way it goes, though, sometimes. When I first heard OK Computer way back when,
every record I've ever loved.
I was like, I don't know if I like this. I'm not sure. And dude, I
have that thing. I say if something confuses you, listen again. Like, you know, that's when you should listen again. Yeah. And I'm like, you know, that first impulse listen, I'm like, that's garbage. I'm sorry, that's garbage to me. That's like playlist consumerist culture garbage where I'm like, if I don't like it in 40 seconds, that means I'm an impatient human.
Right.
You know?
Right. Right. I need to remember that. Yeah.
I mean, but I think that's the truth. Like you said, I remember the first time I heard My Buddy Valentine, you know, and I've got to meet Kevin and people like that in my life. And
that's fantastic.
I always call that getting to like the other side of the speaker, you know, like when you hear something and it takes you 15 years and the next thing you know, you're in the room with that human. Oh, wow. That's such a cool thing. Yeah. And I've had the fortunate experience throughout my life a lot. I just laugh because when I first heard that, like I was mentioning Dave McNary, and I just want to give Dave a big shout out for that. Dave handed me this stack of records because I had mentioned I liked Sonic Youth, and that was in it. I listened to that record for 3 years and thought it was the worst piece of garbage I ever heard. Did not understand understand it. And then all these people that I thought were brilliant kept mentioning it. And I just finally put it on one day. I kept putting it on. I don't know why I kept putting it on.
Yeah.
I finally put it on one day, and the melt was exactly what my brain needed. And all of the production made sense. And that's what I mean. Like, you can't understand Bitches Brew in one listen.
Right.
That's high level thought of a human being who spent their life devoted to an aesthetic perspective of what they're doing with an instrument or with the sound. And like, if you've never heard jazz and I play you Bitches Brew, you're going to hate it. You're not going to understand what's happening.
Right.
Why, 8 minutes in, you're going to be like, this. I'm like, yeah, but 10 hours in, this is going to change your life.
Yeah.
But you have to get there.
Yeah.
And so you have to be patient, and you have to be an ambitious listener. I don't think enough people do that anymore. I think we're in a culture of 15 seconds. I need the Instagram clip version of your song. I get more people that like a 15-second clip of my song than people that actually go and listen to the record. I think that's just common now, but I mean, that's just the truth. But I think that if you don't give yourself a chance to listen to stuff wholeheartedly, you're ruining music for yourself. It's a terrible, terrible crime you're committing against your potential joy and love of so much stuff out there.
Well, come on, y'all. Be ambitious listeners. His latest album is called Smash the Control Machine. It's on Double Helix Records. It's out to stream on jonaswilson.bandcamp.com, where you can purchase the CD and vinyl as well. And you can, of course, pick it up here, your physical copy at Waterloo Records.
Please do. Yeah, y'all actually have the last remaining vinyl.
Come down and get it. Absolutely.
Come down and get it. Y'all have the last remaining vinyl. I did a short run, so.
You can follow him on Instagram at Jonas_Wilson_music for all things Jonas Wilson, and Mr. Pink Records, as well as signing up for his mailing list, which I have. You can go to jonaswilsonmusic.com.
That's what I like people to do, is sign the mailing list.
Please go to the mailing list. Jonas Wilson, at long last.
Thank you for having me, man. I really appreciate coming in and
Thank you for your
talking.
time, man. Absolutely. Thank you for being here. I really appreciate it.
Waterloo's
such
a home, and just to come talk about music and talk about community is awesome.
Well, you're welcome anytime. Can't wait to have you back. And thank y'all out there for listening. You can follow us on Instagram at Waterloo Records, at Waterloo.sound for our Dolby Atmos studio, at Waterloo_wheels to follow the ongoing adventures of the Waterloo van, and at Unofficial Dogs of Waterloo to see all of our canine pals that come in and shop with us. I'd like to thank Cory Reinisch, who I mentioned earlier, our marketing manager, Allie Lingren, our in-house engineer, Mads Lupold for putting these together, Audio-Technica for the mics and headphones, and of course, to the hardest working record store staff on the planet, without which none of this is possible. I'm Gus Ochoa. See y'all next time, and until then, support the artists you love, support your local record store, and if you're in Austin, stop in and say hey. We'd love to see you. Adios, y'all.